Welcome to the Pathfinder Legacy podcast, where we help farmers, ranchers, and business owners create a seamless transition plan for the future. From retirement to ownership transfer, we protect what you've built and guide you every step of the way.
Hello, all. Welcome to Pathfinder Legacy, the show where farm families turn hard conversations into real plans. I'm your host, Heidi Olson, and today we're kicking off Estate Planning Awareness Month with a story that hits close to home. My guest, Mackenzie Schroeder, is a former coworker and a friend. Last year, she lost both her dad and her grandma within just 1 week, and neither of them had a will or estate plan in place. Mackenzie found herself having to step up as a personal representative and handle everything. Her story is a powerful reminder that estate planning isn't just for the wealthy, it's for every family. Mackenzie, thank you for being here today and sharing your story. Tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Hello, everybody. So like she said, I'm Mackenzie Schroeder. I worked with Heidi at the trust department in Williston, and then I moved up to Kenmare and continued with banking. Then I found myself at FSA, just doing like the program side of things. And then I knew that I always wanted to be back into more financial side of things. So I went and did the loan officer training. And so that is where we kind of stand today. I am currently dealing with like the estates, as she said. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Okay. All right. Well, always in banking or finance industry of some sort since you finished your finance degree. So take us back to this time last year. What happened when you lost both your dad and grandma so close together?
So my grandma passed away on August 10th and my dad was August 13th. And so that was a Saturday and a Tuesday. And I did go to work on Monday and, I reached out to an attorney that I had been working with just, on the professional side of things. And I was in awe. I didn't know what to do, where to go, who to talk to. That the biggest thing I feel like is I had to ask a lot of questions. A year ago, we're over a month. So if you don't know, you can't really do anything on legally until after 30 days of somebody being deceased. So I had to wait to get the death certificate and then to be appointed as personal representative. So a year ago, I look back on how did I get through it. I mean,
Right.
It was very, very chaotic, at the least.
Very chaotic, and you were grieving at the same time. So then you're having to deal with both two family members and losing them so close together. What was the very first moment when you realized neither of them had a will or estate plan? Did you know right away that they didn't, or once you started processing things, you realized that they didn't have a plan?
So I also wanted to make it known that it was on both sides of my family. So it was my grandma on my mom's side and then my dad. So they were completely unrelated side of things. Because I feel like that's kind of important because sometimes they'll piggyback off of each other if it would have been on the same side. So when my grandma and after my grandpa died, she wanted me on everything. Her bank accounts, any title, anything that would be of benefit in the future after she passed, she wanted me on it. But as for like the things that you don't think are important, such as like her retirement from her job, her Walmart stock when she worked at Walmart, like that we never took care of. We didn't have any beneficiaries set up, anything like that. So I did know a lot with my grandma because of how close we were. I was writing her checks if she needed me to pay bills or anything like that. So on her side of things, I knew what was coming. My dad, on the other hand, so the day before he passed away, the night before, I should say, my dad wasn't a big talker. He was a talker, but on the phone, it was typically a 30-second conversation. Like, it was very quick. Well, he had went up to my grandma's house to help do some yard work because I was going to have a funeral and then allow people to come up to the farm and we would just hang out and socialize. Well, anyway, he had told me, he was like, yeah, this really makes me think that I need to get my stuff figured out. I don't have a will. I want to make sure that my mom's taken care of too. Obviously, you kids, but my mom as well. And he had worked at a local machine shop since I think he was 18, if not younger. It was a very small business, so I assumed he didn't really have any retirement or anything like that. But from that conversation, I knew that he had nothing set up. So after he passed, I was in shock. I had no idea. And people were asking me at the funeral and his celebration of life, like, was his house paid off? And did he have retirement? Did he have life insurance? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I can't answer any of those questions because I had no idea.
So it just all takes you by shock. So you're trying to process emotions from grandma passing away first. You knew a little bit what you were going to get into with grandma, but some of it maybe was a little bit easier because of that, but you still needed to get appointed as personal representative for her estate to handle those things that you might not have had your name on or as an owner. And then your dad, then he passes and it's a complete shock of that, but that conversation that you had.
Yeah, it was, honestly, I'm very thankful for that conversation, but for him never really talking much to him bringing up all those things the day before he passed away very unexpectedly, I'm very thankful for it, for sure.
Right. I mean, we always say we never know why our loved ones do what they do, but there was a reason. For somehow he needed to have that conversation with you, and it was an important conversation. So you had a starting point. After that, after you were able to put everyone to their final resting place, what responsibilities suddenly fell on your shoulders when to get appointed as personal representative?
So I want to say, like, the biggest thing is finding a good attorney. That was my main concern, is I needed to have a good attorney. And I feel like that a lot of people, like, especially me not really knowing much, I didn't know what to expect. And you always just ask, oh, what's the hourly rate? How much is this going to cost me, type of thing. But at the end of the day, you need a good attorney. And that's the biggest responsibility, is finding that person to help guide me through what I needed to do. So after they had passed, essentially the attorney said, we can meet before the 30 days, but essentially we can't really do much until after the 30 days. So my dad was pretty simple because I was the only child over 18. So I was basically granted personal representative. For my grandma's estate, we had to have my mom sign off. And mainly it was because I have had experience doing personal representative duties. I was the personal representative for my grandpa too. So that would have been my third one dealing with it. So it just kind of made sense that I would take the wheel on that one.
Right. And you did have some experience when you worked in the trust department. You might not have been processing them specifically, but you worked closely with the trust officers and helping with some of those things and hearing the terms, the industry terms, and knew what some of those processes were. So you had to go before the judge. Did you have to, when you were petitioning to be appointed as personal representative, or did he signed off since you were the next of kin in line for that?
Yeah, so for my dad's, I was just the next of kin. So that one was simple. And then the attorney just prepared documents that we both had to sign off on, and she sent over, I think, electronically. So a lot of things are more modernized now with that. So it makes things a lot easier than what they used to have to deal with.
Right. And that saves time and fees and so forth, because anytime you're dealing with the court system, if you don't have to get on the docket to be present in front of the judge, that saves you time. It saves time from your attorney fees and so forth. And really your experiences that you have already dealt with your grandpa's side. So that have probably saved you some time as well, not having to reach out to the attorney for every single thing that you needed to do. So talk about some of the challenges that you had. Did you come across any challenges after you were appointed in trying to put the inventory together? Because, of course, those of the listeners that have never dealt with an estate, after someone passes away, you have to have inventory all of the assets, and you need to obtain the date of death value. So it's reaching out to banks, financial institutions. What do they own? How are things titled for checking or savings accounts? Did you have challenges with that and trying to locate?
Yeah, I feel like the biggest struggle was not knowing what was all out there. The moment you think you have something good to go, something else will pop up. And that was the biggest thing is, thought I had everything, but thankfully my grandpa, he kept everything in a box. That is not what you should do, but it was all in a box.
He was a
And
shoebox accountant.
yes. And that's where he had all of his titles, everything dealing with minerals. He had it in that box. So when he passed away, my grandma said, well, here you go. Good luck. And I tell you what, there was probably 45 sets of FSA maps in there. Why we needed the same set of maps that many times still is still makes me laugh. But I feel like that's the biggest thing is not knowing when everything is actually going to be taken care of, because things pop up all the time, but you got to reach out, or the attorney puts it in the paper for creditors to come after you essentially for money and whatnot. So like that kind of helps things, but it doesn't always tie up the loose ends.
Right. So even though you do the inventory, you can also look at the tax return and see what they had for 1099s and try your best to contact all those accounts. But if they have some sort of life insurance or other annuities or investment accounts, sometimes those don't show up right away, and trying to find what they had and then how they're titled. And did they have it titled where they have pay on death to a specific beneficiary? Because both your grandma and grandpa, or if they named each other, they're both deceased. Now, do they have a beneficiary that it's going to, or does it go to their estate and then passes through to the beneficiaries? So you probably came across some of those finances or property, personal belongings that it might have been a surprise trying to locate everything. And you've dealt with everything from on the banking side, from trying to find checking savings accounts all the way to you were working with mineral interests. So those of you that aren't aware, we're in the northwest part of North Dakota and we're in the middle of the Bakken Formation. So if individuals have mineral interests and so forth, that's a whole nother set of areas to tackle. Are those minerals producing, and having them inventoried? Did you have to have a mineral appraisal and a mineral search done to make sure that you had all those minerals accounted for?
So my dad, we did not. The attorney did recommend it to do that. We didn't have the appraisal done, but I believe we're going to end up doing a search for my grandma just to see if there's anything out there that we don't know about, just to be safe and have our ducks covered.
Right. And then you've got, once everything is settled, then it's preparing the deed, having the attorney prepare the deed to deed it from your grandma's name to the name of the next of kin or to the beneficiary that it's following suit to go to. So, yep. Yeah. How would you say that their lack of planning, how did the lack of planning that they had affect how long or expensive the process became? Do you think you could have gotten, if they would have had things planned, that you would have be finished by now with their estates?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like if they would have had their ducks in a row, things would have been handled so much sooner. There's different twists to both sides. Like my dad, I do have a brother and he's under 18. So that's a whole different ball game because we have to get a account set up with the court. Do you know what that's called?
Oh, a guardianship?
Yes.
Or conservatorship? Okay.
Yep. Conservatorship. So my attorney recommended that I have a second attorney for my brother, just so there's no conflict of interest in the court and just to make things simpler and cleaner, which I like that because that should eliminate problems in the future if they should arise. Right. So that part of things. And then, it's very different. But if things would have been set up, my brother does have autism. And if things would have been set up for that, he could have been in like a special needs trust or something along those lines. But since he had already passed, some of those options weren't available to be used.
Okay, because that had to be set up by the grantor, or your dad would have had to do that. So now that your dad is passed, that option is no longer available to do a special needs trust. So essentially, you're setting a conservatorship account, court guided conservatorship account. So your brother still has benefits, or it could still benefit from his inheritance, but it just wouldn't be streamlined the way you would like to see it to have that extra help.
Absolutely. Yeah. So once he turns 18, it'll kind of be another process that we're going to have to deal with. So
Right. To make sure that he's still protected.
Yep. Protected, taken care of, because it wasn't set up. And that's the biggest thing, is nothing was set up.
And for those of you that are listeners, that if you are setting up a will, so in this case, one of the fix could have been setting up a trust within his will. Your dad could have set up something within his will. So at the time of his death, that trust, it would be what they call a testamentary trust. And that trust would have then been put into force. And now, okay, we have a special needs trust for your brother, and he is taken care of. And that would have alleviated that step of having to have the court supervised account. So all these things that we don't think about. We think that, well, we're just, you know what, we have family, we've got a spouse, we've got other nieces, nephews, grandparents, what have you. We've got some assets, but we don't think it'll never happen to us. We don't want to talk about our mortality. I'm going to live forever. I don't have to have a plan, or you push it off to someday. And as I've said before in one of my past podcasts, someday is not a day of the week, because we never get to that day. Someday never comes around, and we keep kicking the can down the road. And what we really could do to save a lot of heartache and agony and so forth for our family members, if we just made that simple document as a will. And it doesn't have to be super complex, and maybe more assets that you have, it gets to be more entailed on what you need to do. And the bigger your family is, you have other protectors you want to put into place. Yes, but granted, not having a will makes a huge difference in this instance. And it could have very well been avoided, because then, Mackenzie, you kind of been just put as the oldest and just put into place and say, okay, it all fell onto your shoulders to do, and for you to be able to grieve at the same time.
Yep.
Looking back, what do you wish your dad, and we may have answered a little bit of this already, but what would have been that ultimate wish that you would have wanted your dad or grandma had they done differently?
With my grandma, we had actually started working on getting beneficiaries added to her retirement accounts, and we were going to get it transferred over and start a will and everything, but we never got there. And when you say someday, that's how it was, is we'll get to it eventually. It's not a big deal. Looking back, it's like, if I would have taken 3 hours of my day, I could have had it all done. And I could have had everything set up, and it would have been fine. And that would be the biggest thing, is just do it, because it needs to get done. And I also think that some people don't do it because they say, oh, I don't have a lot of stuff. I don't have enough to make a will. But you probably do. You have bank accounts. You probably got a vehicle. You might have a house. You have belongings. So you have more than you think you have. Even if it helps a little bit, I think it's worth it.
Yes, absolutely. It might cost you a couple $1,000s to get it taken care of, but at the end of the day, you've probably already spent more than that just in legal fees and processing time and so forth, and your time having to go through and find all of these items.
Yep, for sure.
Yep.
For sure.
So has this experience changed how you think about your own planning?
Yes.
You have a family.
Yes, very much so, because I told my attorney, I said, you got another customer as soon as this is done, because you're going to have to put mine together now too.
Yeah.
Because I said, I'm not creating this issue for anybody else. I mean, would have been so much simpler if something would have been in place. But here we are 13, almost 14 months later, and we're still trucking along trying to get things done.
Right. To get things done. Are you seeing light at the end of the tunnel?
Yes. Yep. My grandma's is very, very close. The attorney did make it known to me that we will draft the documents to the court and everything. But, if things are missed, we can always have it revised, it felt very good to hear that, because then it's not much of a weight on my shoulders if I do end up missing something.
Mm-hmm. You can go back and amend something if you need to.
Oh. Yep. So that was the biggest thing. So I'm hoping that this next couple of weeks that my grandma's will be closed out, but I'm sure there'll be always things that we're still dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Things that you have to do. And for those that may not be aware as well, a lot of the responsibilities, I touched on this at the beginning of our podcast, but not only putting together the inventory and creating what the date of death value is and so forth and getting that to the attorney, you're also working with the accountant as well to make sure the final tax returns are complete, whether it's their personal tax return up until the time that they passed. And then after that, it becomes the estate tax return and making sure that you have the timing on all those things, and all the income and expenses has been accounted for in that estate period.
That's another thing. I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I first started this process, I just got told, keep track of the bank statements. You're going to open a bank account, deposit, withdraw, whatever you need to do. Just keep track of it. Well, in the beginning, I was just like, oh, it's on the bank. It's fine. But now I'm realizing that you bring in 3 checks to the bank, and on your statement, it'll say $3,000, but you don't know exactly what those checks were. So now I had to go back and try to figure out exactly what those checks were, who they were from, for how much, just because you have to put together, I think it's called a statement of accounts, or does that sound right?
Yep, or the statement or accountings.
Yeah, so you have to prepare a legal document, or the attorney does, to the court to sign off on all the deposits and withdrawals out of that account. And the more siblings or the more people involved, the worse it is. So thankfully, with my mom is able to waive that because she's the only child. So grandma's was good, but I just found out about that. So I've been doing all this backup work, which is okay because now I have the documentation and whatnot. But for my dad's, I'll for sure have to submit everything, and I'll have to have check numbers and what they were for and what did it pay and all the things. And that's something I definitely thought was an easy task in the beginning, but now it's actually a lot more work than you think it is.
And exactly so. You don't realize until you get started with it. And then you think back, oh, I wish I would have done it like this. So that way you make it easier on yourself, because you're going to have to provide all of those details for the final accounting and to be able to close the estate.
Yes.
Well, that's very good advice. So for those of our listeners that are listening out there, if you are a PR, make sure that you are keeping good bank accounting records and set up a separate account just for that processing of the estate for the income and expenses. Do you, now that you've been through this process, 3 times now for your family, do you find yourself talking about this more with friends or neighbors? Do you find yourself advocating and sharing your story and explaining what not to do?
Yeah, I do. And I call bingo. And obviously the bingo crowd is the older crowd. And not long ago, somebody had made the comment, that's not my problem. That'll be my kid's problem. And I said, no, it is not. And he was one of my regulars that said that. And I said, no, you need to go to attorney. This is not your kid's problem. This is your problem that you got to take care of. He said it will make their life so much easier if you just take care of it. And so, even with my bingo crowd, they all knew my grandma very well. So I do get questions like, what do I need to do? Because a lot of people don't know, especially I feel like in our rural communities, they don't know what needs to be done because it is what it is type of thing. And my friends, I'm at the wishy-washy age, I would say, between the kids that don't care and still party, and then you got the kids that are, have a family. So, but I do get asked questions and whatnot, and I do talk with my boyfriend quite a bit about what we're gonna do or what we should do versus what my grandma and my dad did, for sure.
Right. Absolutely. Learn from their mistakes and what they did. And they thought at the time it wasn't that important to do. And there's that someday kicking the can down the road. And like your bingo friends, well, let somebody else deal with it. But they don't realize, because they don't want to talk about it right now, because they're talking about, well, if I talk about it, that means I'm dying tomorrow. But they don't realize what the burden they're putting on their family members by not talking about it and doing it.
Absolutely. Nobody thinks that they're going to die. And that's the crazy part, is life can change in a blink of an eye. So
that's exactly right. And we need to be prepared with everything in our lives, from everything from A to Z. So you know what? We take good care of what we have in our checkbook and making sure we pay our bills. Why wouldn't we make sure that we're taking care of what we need to provide for our end of life items as well?
Absolutely.
Just as if we take care of a baby, we wouldn't send that baby off and just put him in his crib and, well, he'll be fine. Same thing. You would not do that to your adult children and say they'll be fine. And I'm not saying to provide an inheritance for them, but just making those end of life decisions and wrapping up your life after you're gone, so that way they can continue to grieve for you and have those memories. Most importantly, the memories that we have for family. All right.
I always joke, take care of your crap.
That's right. Absolutely. Don't let it sit. Yes. Then it's gonna get smelly, and nobody wants the smell of it.
No.
All right. Wonderful. Well, thanks for that, Mackenzie. Thank you for sharing such a personal story. Your experience really shows that estate planning isn't just about money. It's about easing that burden on your loved ones. And for those that are listening, we've stressed multiple times today, don't wait until it's too late. Estate Planning Awareness Week is coming up the third week of October. So let this be your nudge to review your will, your trust, or if you don't have one, let's make it a priority. I'm going to be focusing in October here about some different estate planning topics. And the week of, I believe estate planning is the week of October 20th or 22nd, that third week. Keep staying tuned for that, because I'm going to have little snippets every single day, little estate planning tools. So make sure you tune in and make sure that you're using those tools so you're not putting your family through this grieving stress. So I've also put together a free checklist that you can grab in the show notes. It'll walk you through what counts as your estate, like farmland, equipment, life insurance, retirement accounts, and just really where to start. So you've got a planning tool for that. Grab that in the show notes. Oh, all right. Kenzie, any other words of wisdom that you have for us for today? Or
I don't think so. Just take care of your crap.
There you go. We don't want it smelling up everywhere.
Yes.
All
That's
right.
all I have to say.
All right. Wonderful. At the end of the day, having a plan is an act of love. Don't leave it up to the courts to write your story. Thanks for joining me on the Pathfinder Legacy podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, share it with a friend or a business farm family. And if you're ready to start the conversation, let's talk. Book a 30-minute discovery call. You can connect with me at pathfinderlegacy.com. Until next time, I'll see you between the ditches.
Thanks for listening to the Pathfinder Legacy podcast, where your future is our focus. Be sure to subscribe, follow us on social media, and visit us at pathfinderlegacy.com to start building your transition plan today.